Okay, let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Cannabis Reality. Today I'm going to share with you a lot of other stories over the years that I've developed and kind of collected. And also, along with our 501c3 Hemp for Victor, we have a lot of subject matter experts who come on and talk about the science behind cannabis and the body. So today, Dr. Burchman and Dr. Blair are going to talk about how cannabis helps with the body and why opioids do not. What's the scientific reason? Right after that, we followed up by 3 supporting veteran stories. I hope you enjoy.
The opioids, the narcotics really connect with the opioid receptors, but unfortunately, these opioid receptors have a tolerance level, and these medications have tolerance levels, so that it requires more and more medications in order to maintain the same level of analgesia. Whereas you actually find that the cannabinoid type 1 receptors are often very co-located with the opioid receptors, and so they're in a partnership. And when you use cannabis, you can control that opioid receptor response, and you can actually get activation of the opioid receptor with the positive benefits. For instance, cannabinoid type 2 receptors actually signal the opioid receptors and provide analgesics, as well as other mechanisms that are involved. So there's a host of different ways of addressing and the pain issue, and it mainly amounts to the cannabidiol and THC. THC is working on the cannabinoid type 1 receptor. CBD is working more on the cannabinoid type 2 receptor and that benefit, it comes from analgesia, but there's a host of other benefits that come from it as well. So there's a multitude of benefits, and there's no addiction to the CBD and the THC when it occurs. In fact, for the most part, it blocks the addictive component of these drugs.
It's fascinating that if you take a narcotic antagonist like naloxone or Narcan, and you actually give it to somebody who's getting pain relief from a cannabis product, you will get a reversal of the pain relief. And what that's telling you is that the cannabis system, the cannabinoid analgesic system, is actually working through the endogenous opioid system, but it works in a different way. And just like Philip alluded to, it doesn't downregulate the receptor, which is basically the onset of addiction that you see. And so it's a totally different, it's a different modality, but they are related. And then the other thing that's really interesting and important to know is the brainstem, the human brainstem, where breathing and circulation is controlled, is studded with these narcotic receptors, opioid receptors. But there are no cannabinoid receptors in the brainstem. And that means when you get a big dose of a cannabinoid like THC, you could smoke 100,000 joints and you would not stop breathing. It's absolutely impossible. And so the safety margin of opioids versus cannabinoids for pain control is almost laughable. Cannabis is so safe.
I was a United States Navy corpsman. I served with Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team, United States Marine Corps. I was in the Navy, but served with also in a hospital in Jacksonville, and then into a Marine Corps command. My story is kind of different. I hear a lot about the vets that ended up on pills after their service, and that story that y'all probably hear over and over again in this documentary, that you go into the VA seeking help and then they put you on pills. When I was young, I was actually diagnosed with ADHD, and so I started the pill process actually very young. And for me, I turned to cannabis. I actually found cannabis at 13 years old. Probably the first time I really said that openly, but I saw cannabis as medicine since I was 13 years old. When I got out of the military in 2005, there was no doubt in my mind I didn't want to go down the same road that I had already gone with the pills that had been thrown down my throat, treating my ADHD and some of the subsequent things that come with that. I got the pills slammed down my throat, the Prozac, the Wellbutrin, the Effexor, Depakote, a lot of different things. When I was 15 years old, I actually got caught using cannabis, and I come from a very conservative Southern Baptist family. They sent me to rehab when I was 15 years old when they found my cannabis. I was a victim of the drug war very early on in my natural healing process, and despite all this, I was told I was an addict and all these different things that comes with what happens when you go to rehab. There's like crackheads and heroin addicts, and I know they have their own struggles too, so I'm not judging them. But here I am, you know, I kind of felt like that Bob Saget scene in Half Baked, you know. Y'all know the scene, and I've joked about that my whole life because that was me. That was me, like in this room of people like my age, 15-year-old kids that were like heroin addicts. I didn't know anything about it. I was this kid from the suburbs. I grew up in Katy, Texas. Played football. I tried to get along in school and do all the things I was supposed to do, but ultimately, I ended up kind of joining going to military school, and from there joining the military. And I found my home, I found my discipline and my calling, and I loved what I did, but I was struggling and I knew I needed to medicate. When I got out of the military, I started medicating with cannabis right off the bat, and I never turned to the pills, I never turned to the VA. And I still struggled for a long time. I don't want anybody to think that it kept me from struggling. That's not true. There was some additional work that I had to do, because if you're just using it, intention is everything. So if I'm just using it as a escape from dealing with my problems, that works, and it kept me alive, and it kept me sort of healthy compared to some of the other guys that I've talked to. God saved my voice to be able to speak and to be able to do my work and do what I have to do. So that's my mission. That's why I got involved in cannabis. My life is still a struggle, but I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel now. Now I know when the struggles aren't so bad, I can focus on getting my work done. I have ADHD, PTSD, chronic pain, and I can still focus and succeed. PTSD is not a death sentence. It is just a diagnosis, and what you do with that diagnosis is up to you. And so that's my mission, to help people understand that they have that voice and to take that and carry it forward.
Ryan Ortega, I'm the Director of Operations, Veterans for Natural Rights. I am an activist, I am a father, I am a soldier. I served 5 years in the military, I deployed to Iraq. PTSD is a real thing for me. It's a real thing for a lot of veterans. And I experienced healing through cannabis. Cannabis and psychedelics. It started with cannabis. I'm actually a Texas refugee, and I was taking opioids for 10 years. I was medically retired from the military. The Army gave me a prescription of painful narcotics to get rid of my pain. It was the wrong answer. It was a quick fix, but I was on them for 10 years, and after that point, I became a slave. I became no good. I became a shadow of my former self, and I knew something had to be done, and I think because of my military training, I had the intestinal fortitude to give up everything, sell everything I owned, and move to Colorado, where I had access to natural medicines, and the healing began. Within 6 months, I was off of a 10-year opioid prescription, mainly with the help of psychedelics and cannabis, but also the access to medicine, being able to talk about it with doctors, being able to talk about it with legislators, with my school professors. I got off of opioids, and I went into engineering school, and I became an activist. My goal at Veterans for Natural Rights is to bring healing to the nation, to the whole world. We don't mind carrying this torch as veterans because we are the poster child for PTSD, but it doesn't stop with us. There are so many more civilians that have PTSD and trauma-related illnesses that cannabis can cure. That's what we want to do to help out. We want to bring natural healing and natural rights back to the people.
Jeremiah Looney. I was in 1-9 Field Artillery in Fort Stewart, Georgia, and one of the big things cannabis has done for me is it got me off all the opioids and off of 20 plus medications a day. And that also aided in getting off all the alcohol and stopping from the alcoholism. I was drinking 30 to 40 beers a day for almost a decade about the war. And cannabis was a very good patch over from pharmaceutical medicines like Seroquel that were being given to me in high doses to back to society, because I was a 300-pound potato just sitting on a couch that was just zoned out all the time. I lost my family and my friends, and through cannabis I got my life back, I got healthy, I became a mayor of my hometown, and like I said, I got all my family back. And so cannabis has been very valuable in my life. I'll always fight for it. I'll never stop, no matter what happens or what anybody says.
My name is Vince Padilla, United States Army. I deployed from November 2007 to February 2009 in Iraq.
What has cannabis done for you?
It's got me off the Skittles. Got home from Iraq and they put me on all kinds of antidepressants and anti-anxieties because I wasn't the same. I was always looking around, thinking somebody was after me. I got out in 2011, found myself depressed, at home with kids, couldn't work. I tried going to school. I was in school for a little bit, gotten a depression spell. My unit had just deployed and I wanted to be with them. December 2011, put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger. It didn't go off. I went outside, unloaded the magazine, went to therapy for a little while. They put me on some more medicine. That just made things worse. Stopped taking them, started smoking a little bit. Smoking helped a little bit. Then I had another depression spell, and again, I went back to my pistol, put it back up to my head, and pulled the trigger again. It never went off in my hands when I had it to my head, always when I had it away. I still have the bullets that I dug out of the ground. Went back into emergency room at the VA. They wanted to put me on something else they say that they think I'm borderline bipolar, so all the antidepressants that they're giving me are making me want to do these things to myself. So I told them I'm done. I'm done with all being your guinea pig, trying to figure out what the fuck is gonna make me better. I'm gonna smoke weed. And my doctor told me, okay, well, we'll still monitor you, but just know that if you get caught, it's an illegal substance, you're gonna go to jail. If I go to jail for keeping myself alive, okay,